In November 2024, the largest motorcycle company in Europe stopped making motorcycles. Not for a retooling. For months, the factory in Madighofen, Austria went silent. Workers showed up and found the gates locked. Then they found out their December wages hadn't been paid. The company was KTM. The debt it couldn't service had reached nearly 3 billion euros. 2 years earlier, it had reported the best financial results in its history. Its CEO was a billionaire. Its share price had risen many times over in a decade. This is the story of how KTM, Europe's largest motorcycle manufacturer, built a 3 billion euro empire, drove it into the largest bankruptcy in Austrian industrial history, and got sold to an Indian conglomerate for the price of its debts. The rise. To understand what happened, you need to understand what KTM actually was. In 1934, a mechanic named Hans Trunkenpolz opened a repair shop in Madighofen, Austria, a small town 40 miles from Salzburg. By 1951, he was building motorcycles. By the 1980s, the company had overextended, diversified into bicycles and radiators, and nearly collapsed. In 1991, the banks took over and split the company into 4 pieces. Then Stefan Pierer arrived. He was 35 years old. On January 8, 1992, he restarted KTM with 160 employees and the capacity to build 6,700 bikes a year. Within a decade, that number was 100,000. Within 2 decades, 300,000. The strategy was simple. KTM wouldn't compete with Honda and Yamaha on volume. It would own performance, off-road, adventure, street, with racing DNA at every price point. The slogan was, "Ready to race." It wasn't marketing, it was engineering philosophy. They won the Dakar rally in 2001, then every single year until 2019. 18 consecutive victories, a record that has never been broken. In 2007, Indian manufacturer Bajaj Auto took a 14% stake in KTM. Bajaj would manufacture KTM single-cylinder bikes in Pune for global export. KTM got low-cost production. Bajaj got European prestige. And the partnership built the most popular motorcycles in KTM's history, the 390 series made in India, sold everywhere. In 2017, KTM entered MotoGP, the premier class against Honda, Ducati, and Yamaha, with a machine built from scratch. In 2020, Brad Binder won KTM's first ever MotoGP race. In 2024, a 20-year-old rookie named Pedro Acosta shocked the entire paddock, scoring 5 podiums in his debut Premier Class season and finishing 6th in the championship. The best result any non-Ducati satellite rider had managed that year. By 2022, the numbers were extraordinary. Revenue of 2.44 billion euros. Net profit of 171 million euros. The share price had risen many times over from where it was a decade earlier. Stefan Pierer's net worth was listed at $1.6 billion. KTM employed 6,000 people. It was the largest motorcycle manufacturer in Europe. He had done it. 160 employees to the summit of a continent's industry. 30 years of building, race by race, model by model. Then he started dismantling it. The empire. The first crack was invisible from outside. It was a decision made at the top of the market when KTM could afford mistakes, and so nobody stopped it. Stefan Pierer wanted to build an empire. Husqvarna, Gas, MV Agusta, one after another. In 2013, he acquired Husqvarna motorcycles from BMW. BMW had bought the Swedish brand for 93 million euros in 2007, invested another 60 million, and still lost an estimated $250 million on it. Pierer got it for what reports described as a symbolic price. He moved production to Madighofen and relaunched Husqvarna as a premium KTM. Same platforms, different bodywork, higher sticker price. In 2020, KTM acquired Gas, a Spanish off-road brand that had gone bankrupt 5 years earlier. It became the budget brand below KTM. Shared platforms, entry-level pricing, 30,000 units a year. Then came MV Agusta. In November 2022, KTM purchased a 25% stake in the Italian exotic motorcycle brand for less than 43 million euros. In March 2024, after the first warning signs had already appeared in KTM's own finances, Pierer exercised an option to take majority control. The MV Agusta investment swallowed over 200 million euros in total liquidity. By early 2025, It was put on the chopping block in a fire sale to appease creditors. But the single most destructive bet had nothing to do with motorcycles. In 2021, Pura Mobility launched an aggressive push into electric bicycles under the Husqvarna, Gas, and R. Raymond brands. The target was 500 million euros in e-bike sales by 2025. They had completely misjudged the post-pandemic market, building mountains of inventory for a demand that no longer existed. Sales dropped 32%. The division generated negative 400 million euros in free cash flow in 2023 alone. When the write-down finally came, impairment losses were around 850 million euros. The company gave away 11,000 e-bikes to employees just to clear warehouse space. By 2025, Pura Mobility was exiting the e-bike business entirely, liquidating stock, shutting down brands, unwinding a bet that had cost nearly €1 billion. And while all of this was happening, the core motorcycle business was running a strategy that would create a crisis of its own. It never stopped building motorcycles. Even as demand softened after the post-COVID surge, the factories kept running. Dealers had ordered aggressively during the pandemic boom. KTM kept production high, assuming that demand would continue. It didn't. By late 2024, an estimated 265,000 unsold motorcycles sat in warehouses and at dealerships worldwide, roughly a full year's production. Many of them built to a spec that didn't meet Europe's new emissions standard taking effect January 1st, 2025, potentially unsellable. On the order of €1 billion in inventory, depreciating, blocking cash, strangling dealers. The camshaft. While KTM's management was counting acquisitions, the machines were failing. The engine at the center of the scandal was the LC8C, KTM's parallel twin, powering the 790 Duke, the 790 Adventure, and the subsequent 890 range. When it launched in 2018, riders loved it. Compact, powerful, razor sharp. Then the camshafts started disintegrating. Reports appeared on forums, then migrated to Facebook groups, then became impossible to ignore. Riders pulling bikes apart after 20 or 30,000 kilometers and finding camshaft lobes ground nearly flat. One owner's camshafts at 11,000 miles looked, in his words, like they'd done 200,000. Independent engineers who tested affected components found camshaft hardness measurements far below expected specifications, where proper hardness should have been in the upper 50s on the Rockwell scale. Affected parts measured significantly lower. The metal wasn't hard enough, narrow rocker arms were chewing through it, add inadequate oil feed design on earlier engines, production residue blocking oil channels, and seal issues. Multiple overlapping vulnerabilities, none catastrophic alone, all contributing together. And when a camshaft fails at highway speed, the engine doesn't sputter, it stalls instantly. This wasn't just a financial inconvenience for owners, it was a safety hazard. A Facebook group called KTM Failed Camshafts grew to nearly 10,000 members. 55,000 KTM 790 Dukes and 790 Adventures had been built. The problem also emerged on later 890 models. Reports surfaced on the Husqvarna Norden 901. Independent inspection images emerged of a 2023 engine with the same wear pattern, suggesting the fixes KTM claimed to have introduced hadn't fully worked. KTM's official response was denial. The company stated, "The camshafts used on the LC8C platform have no inherent defect." KTM North America claimed only 0.5% of models had experienced issues, roughly 250 confirmed cases globally. Some riders were denied warranty coverage because they had changed their own oil. Out-of-pocket repair bills exceeded $3,000. It was not until July 2024, years after the first widespread reports, that KTM posted an apology and committed to a goodwill repair program. No formal recall was ever issued. Riders had to fight for coverage individually. Non-KTM dealers refused to accept 790 and 890 models as trade-ins. Resale values collapsed, and the bikes sitting unsold in warehouses became harder to move. When the brand built on Ready to Race quietly launches a repair program for its most important engine and never calls it a recall, the brand promise is broken. The numbers. In 2022, Pura Mobility reported a net profit of €171 million. In 2024, it reported a net loss of €1.08 billion, the same company, 2 years apart. In 2021, the company carried under €200 million in net debt. By the end of 2023, it had tripled. And by the time the factory gates locked in late 2024, it stood at 1.64 billion euros, a 763% increase in 3 years. And while that debt was exploding, the company kept paying dividends. Between 2021 and spring 2024, Pierre Mobility paid approximately 130 million euros in shareholder dividends. In 2023, 66 million euros was distributed. The year free cash flow was negative 413 million. In spring 2024, a further 16 million was paid out, while the company already carried nearly 800 million euros in net debt. Stefan Pierer owned the controlling stake at the top of that structure. Analysts estimated he personally received tens of millions in dividends over those 4 years. During that same period, the company had received roughly 11 million euros in Austrian government COVID furlough subsidies and accessed a 60 million euro COVID emergency credit line from the Austrian State Bank. While accepting that public money, executive compensation increased by 30% and dividends were paid. It was documented in public filings. Nothing changed. The insolvency administrator later identified the core error plainly. Production was not reduced despite declining demand. Between January 2023 and October 2024, this created a liquidity requirement of 440 million euros that the company could not finance. KTM was effectively borrowing money to keep the factories running and to pay its shareholders. That cannot last. It never lasts. The collapse. The trigger was a single creditor calling in a loan of 247 million euros. Under KTM's banking agreements, one lender demanding repayment activated a clause that allowed every other lender to demand theirs too. The company was seeking an emergency bridging loan in the hundreds of millions. It could not secure one in time. On Tuesday, November 26, 2024, the formal restructuring announcement dropped. Stefan Pierer and co-CEO Gottfried Neumeister addressed more than 5,000 employees at the Mattighofen factory. Shares fell 45% in a single day, the largest single-session drop in company history. Year-to-date losses on the stock, 84%. On Friday, November 29th, the formal insolvency application was filed. 3 entities combined debts exceeding 2.9 billion euros, owed to over 1,600 creditors. The Austrian Creditor Association called it the largest insolvency procedure in the country that year. It was the largest in Upper Austrian industrial history. Full stop. The factory lines at Mattighofen closed on December 13th, a week earlier than planned. Workers arrived and found their November wages, Christmas bonuses, and promised December advances had not been transferred. They relied on Austria's National Insolvency Compensation Fund while management negotiated in court. Stefan Pierer stepped down as CEO on January 23, 2025, the day before a crucial court hearing. His farewell statement: "For me, KTM was always more than just a company. It was and is a passion, a mission, and a family." While his employees waited on state funds to cover their wages, Pierer's consortium had invested 119 million euros, alongside Red Bull Air, Mark Mateschitz, and an Austrian bank, in the acquisition of a firefighting vehicle manufacturer called Rosenbauer. The money existed. It went elsewhere. In MotoGP, the timing was almost surreal. 6 weeks before the bankruptcy filing, KTM had finished second in the Constructors' Championship, their best ever result. Pedro Acosta had just completed a stunning rookie season. He reportedly offered KTM 1.5 million euros to break his contract and leave for a Ducati. KTM refused to let him go. In 2025, riding for the factory team, he finished 4th in the championship, the best season any KTM rider had ever produced, while his team was being sold to pay its creditors. By mid-2025, nearly 1,900 jobs had been lost, a 30% reduction. Suppliers who had built their entire operation around KTM components were left filing claims in an insolvency process they had no control over. Bajaj takes over. Bajaj Auto had been watching this happen from the inside. They had held a stake in KTM since 2007. They had built KTM's single-cylinder bikes in Pune for 15 years. They knew exactly what the balance sheet said. When the crisis became acute, Bajaj's CFO told investors directly, "We took a cautious approach because we didn't want to compromise the recoverability of money." Then they moved decisively. In February 2025, Bajaj invested 150 million euros to fund a limited production restart at Mattighofen. In May 2025, Bajaj's European subsidiary secured a loan of around 566 million euros from JP Morgan Chase, DBS Bank, and Citigroup. The funding needed to meet the court-mandated creditor payment deadline. On February 25, 2025, creditors voted to approve the restructuring plan. 90% backed it. Every creditor accepted 30 cents on every euro they were owed. 70 cents written off. Gone. On November 18, 2025, Bajaj completed the full acquisition, purchasing Stefan Pierer's controlling stake and renaming the parent company Bajaj Mobility AG. The 32-year Pierer era was over. In 2026, KTM refinanced Bajaj's emergency rescue loans with a new €550 million banking facility, trading one set of creditors for another but staying alive under Bajaj's flag. Bajaj is reportedly targeting a 50% cut in KTM's operating costs. The MotoGP program is under review. The new owners have made clear that a racing program generating no direct revenue needs to justify itself. The orange livery continues. The factory in Mattighofen runs. But the company running them is now accountable to shareholders in Pune, a company that operates at 18% net margins and has no patience for vanity projects. The verdict. So what actually killed KTM? Not the market. Honda was profitable in 2024. Royal Enfield was growing. The motorcycle industry didn't collapse. KTM did. Three things. First, an empire built on debt, Husqvarna, Gas, MV Agusta, e-bikes, each one individually defensible. Together, executed without restraint, they turned a focused, profitable motorcycle manufacturer into a sprawling portfolio that required permanent capital injection to survive. Second, factories that never stopped. While demand fell, the assembly lines kept moving. 265,000 unsold bikes don't represent bad luck. They represent a decision made by someone with authority over those lines to keep running them when the evidence said stop. Third, a brand promise broken by a camshaft. KTM denied a defect that nearly 10,000 customers could prove existed. When you market yourself as ready to race and your most important engine is quietly failing, you cannot quietly fix it. The trust doesn't come back. Between 2021 and 2024, the company paid around €130 million in dividends. During that same period, net debt grew by €1.45 billion. The creditors who financed that gap wrote off 70 cents on the euro. The workers who didn't receive their wages claimed through the National Insolvency Fund. Stefan Pierer faces no criminal charges, no clawback. His consortium invested over €100 million in a firefighting company while his employees' wages went unpaid, and he was legally permitted to do so. KTM still exists. Bajaj will rationalize it, cut it, and probably keep it alive because the brand still has value. The Dakar streak still happened. Ready to race still means something. But KTM, as Pierre built it, the empire, the portfolio, the racing program as a statement of personal ambition, that is gone. He rescued this company from bankruptcy with 160 workers in 1992. He handed it back to creditors in 2024 with nearly €3 billion in debt. That is the full arc. That is the story of KTM. That's how KTM went from 160 employees and a shuttered factory to the biggest bankruptcy in Austrian industrial history, and back to a factory floor again, now under a different flag. The question nobody agrees on, is Bajaj actually going to save KTM, or did the brand die the day Pierre walked out the door? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you've owned a KTM, I want to hear it, the good and the bad. If this story hit different than you expected, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm this kind of content is worth showing to people who actually care about motorcycles. And subscribe if you want the next one. We cover the stories the motorcycle industry would rather you forgot. That's it for this one. See you on the next.